Listen to this podcast, or I'll gut you.
Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. Welcome to the Christmas edition of Ghostman and Rivera's Horror Show podcast. Like we said last week, we're those rare horror nerds that actually enjoy the Christmas season. And for you horror nerds that don't, hopefully this podcast will give you a reason to, get into Christmas a little bit more. There is something out there for horror fans on Christmas, and we have the proof right here. We're going to launch right away with our first film, the classic, the great, the deadly, the mean-spirited, trashy, Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Yep, the famous 1984 Killer Santa movie directed by Charles E. Sellier Jr. He did two very small films after this, then went back to producing TV and documentaries. It's kind of almost drummed him out of the business. It was such a controversy and was such a black mark on his career. It was written by Michael Hickey. This was his only film. It's based on a story by Paul Kamey, and this was also his only film. Kamey submitted a script that said something about a killer Santa, and so basically they just expanded on that. So Paul Kamey really didn't have much to do with writing. He just submitted a script that happened to mention a killer Santa. Oh, that's a good idea. Let's expand on that. So then Michael Hickey expanded on it, and I think it's a really solid script. It's kind of hard to believe they didn't do more after this one.
I mean, TriStar originally meant for this to be, this movie came out early in TriStar Pictures, like when they were just like a new thing. And this was meant to be their slasher franchise because like most of the holidays had already been taken up. You already had Halloween, My Bloody Valentine with like Valentine's Day. So their original intention was like, perfect, Christmas, we'll use that. So this will be our slasher franchise.
Yeah. And had an excellent slasher killer, Billy, played by Robert Brian Wilson. And then the other standout performance in this is Lillian Chauvin as Mother Superior.
Mm-hmm.
She has 178 credits to her name. She goes all the way back to I Spy and Adventures of Superman and Alfred Hitchcock Presents in the 50s. She was in.
Go on.
Yeah, and in Perry Mason, Mission Impossible in the 60s, Fantasy Island in the 70s. Magnum P.I., Different Strokes, Predator 2, Baywatch, and X-Files in the 90s. Catch Me If You Can, ER, Malcolm in the Middle in 2000s, and then died in 2008.
She was actually a very accomplished and sought-after acting coach, too. So she's a very serious thespian. And it's kind of interesting because when you really look at the film, I could kind of see that. I could see the very seriousness of acting, and I think it's totally crazy and awesome that an acting coach took a part in a slasher movie and took it as seriously as she did.
Yeah, and one of the only places that, or critics that gave this a good review was Hollywood Reporter. And the main thing they mentioned is Lillian Chauvin's performance in this. Yeah. And of course it had the great Linnea Quigley. This is one of her classic marks on her resume.
Yeah.
And the synopsis goes, after his senile grandpa warns him that Santa punishes those who are naughty, little Billy sees his parents murdered by a man dressed as Santa Claus. He grows up being mentally abused in an orphanage by Mother Superior and gets a job as a toy store Santa when he turns 18. After seeing someone have sex, it triggers flashbacks of his parents and he becomes a murdering Santa out to punish the naughty.
Yes. I need to say up front, this has become a Christmas tradition for me. It's right up there with Home Alone, as far as I'm concerned. It's one of those Christmas movies that I think really takes the spirit of Christmas and kind of spits in its face. And yet, despite that, for some reason, it always puts me in the holiday spirit and the holiday cheer. I don't know what it is about it. It's so Christmas oriented, seeing the Santa Claus, seeing all the presents, the visuals of it all. It always gets me excited for Christmas in spite of it being a really nasty, mean-spirited slasher flick. I must say, Definitely one of my favorite slasher films of the 80s period. I think it's one of the ones that's best scripted as well. I think what the focus was in most slasher films, as far as I can tell, and I love these movies, but I recognize what they are. They're crap. They're trash. They're supposed to be trash. That's what we love about them. But this one actually took the psychological profile of the character serious. Now, whether the psychology of this is accurate, I'm not even going to get into that because it probably isn't. This is a very wacky film. But I don't think any slasher movies that go to the lengths that this one goes to try to explain the origins of its killer, what their childhood was like, what their triggering trauma is, and their struggle to try to be a normal person. Most of these movies, they're just about teenagers getting hacked up, and it's usually like some escape mental patient, like in a Slumber Party Massacre, or some asshole in The Burning, or you got Jason Friday the 13th. You don't really get much slasher films with like an in-depth backstory where the first half of the movie is just dedicated to detailing the character's history. So I got to give him credit for that, because that's a major rarity in this type of film.
Yeah, and there's so many triggers throughout his life that you witness, and it's no wonder that he becomes a killer. You watch it thinking, I would probably become a killer if I went through all that shit.
Oh yeah. And it's a fun movie too. Obviously it's very mean-spirited, as I said before, but I think there's a sense of fun about it. The way that it's kind of poking fun at the nuns at the Christian school, although to be fair, it does seem to delve into that trope of the good nun and the bad nun, the sweet nun and the mean nun. So you got two different characters like that. But the whole naughty, punish, the scene as a child where he walks in and sees two adults having sex, and where Mother Superior bursts in very menacingly, I might add,
Yeah.
with her leather belt, naughty, punish, and she starts punishing him, is kind of funny. There's an element of camp there. I think there's a heavy element of camp at play there. And what makes it even funnier is, as campy as I think, what makes the camp even funnier is Mother Superior looks genuinely pissed off and disturbed. She's not playing the moment for camp. She's not playing it for laughs. She's dead serious when she's in that scene, whipping those naughty teenagers to death. Not to death, but whipping them as punishment. It has such a goofy spirit, and at the same time it's vicious, it's nasty, it's raw, it's really, really mean-spirited, and very sleazy too, I might add. I mean, the presence of Linnea Quigley here, her iconic moment of being impaled topless on on the deer, the mounted head on the mounted deer head on the wall. Classic.
For all of its camp, it's also got a lot of scary and disturbing images in it, and the atmosphere in a lot of the scenes is really disturbing. Like that whole beginning, like a perfect beginning to a Christmas movie. That's what you have to have for a great Christmas horror film, is a perfect beginning. And this one has that Santa's watching, Santa's creeping. That's a creepy ass song. So this plays as a family goes to see the senile grandpa in the mental hospital. I always love that scene, like the grandpa getting in the boy's face. Like he's completely catatonic, can't speak, and all of a sudden when the parents leave the room, he tells the boy, "You better run if you see Santa."
You know why it's funny? Because it's contrived, and it seems very aware that it's contrived. It doesn't make sense that he would just be comatose, and the only time he would ever come alive is to terrorize his grandson about Christmas. Why? I don't understand. It makes absolutely no sense, but I think that's what makes it kind of funny. It was like, what, this fucking demented old man?
Yeah.
And how could he have known how right he would have been?
Yeah, because directly after that, you see a guy dressed in a Santa suit gunning down a store clerk. And it's a pretty gnarly robbing and murder. And then a pretty disturbing family ambush when he ambushes the boy and his parents and just brutally kills the parents while the boy watches from the bushes. And he just confirms everything that the grandpa just told him.
Yeah. It's such a vicious little film. It has such a I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think there's something about the juxtaposition of Christmas and the cheerfulness with such lurid, mean material that I think really makes this effective. And I think my favorite moment in the movie that to me the scene that really sums up this film takes place after the store massacre, after Billy finally snaps as dressed up as Santa and kills everybody in his store. When the young nun, she comes to open the door to like check on him and see how he is on the store, and she sees a bloodbath, carnage everywhere. But it's juxtaposed with these images of Saint Nicholas and Christmas and Santa Claus and reindeer and nutcrackers. And there's such a strange, eerie feeling of the shots that linger on people dead, people who were slaughtered in very gruesome ways, with very typical Christmas imagery. The Santa Claus is moving up and down. And I'm pretty sure you know what scene I'm talking about. The scene that comes when you see the nutcracker open its mouth and everything. It's such an eerie juxtaposition to see these two elements played against each other.
And especially after he just finished strangling a guy with a string of Christmas lights.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's another thing. I know that the writer of this film said he tried to go out of his way to try to use as many Christmas ornaments or Christmas decorations as possible as murder weapons whenever it was available to do so.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a surprise that this was such a controversial film in the 1980s, given how conservative the era was, given that they used to actually play this during football games. They played ads for this during football games where the families were all together. Siskel and Ebert loathed it, but it's very predictable of them that they would have loathed it. So many parents group came out against this, and they actually had it removed from theaters after so much controversy. TriStar's original plan was to give it like a limited release for a few weeks, and then if it did well, that they were going to go wider. And had it not been for the controversy, it would have went wider. Another interesting thing, this was released the same day as A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Literally came out the same day. And guess which one was making more money?
This one.
This one made more money than A Nightmare on Elm Street. So I find that kind of interesting.
And that parents group that got it removed from theaters was Citizens Against Movie Madness. Just ridiculous name for a ridiculous group that tries to silence people just because it doesn't fit their sensibilities. Mm-hmm. And then they were on this mission to like get these movies pulled from theaters, anything that they thought was corrupting their children. And they disbanded soon after this. They completely destroyed the success of this movie, and then disbanded soon after that.
Yeah. I mean, if not for them, this probably would have been a much bigger film. It probably would have had a more iconic stature than it has at the present time. As it is, I feel like this was really rediscovered in the era of like Blu-rays and DVDs and fan collections. This used to be a smaller cult film, but I feel it's a cult film whose cult grows bigger every year. Every year I hear about more and more people watching Silent Night, Deadly Night. And I think for most horror fans, it's become a perennial December favorite. I'd even say so. I wouldn't say that it looked like a movie like Black Christmas is, I think obviously that's a better film than this. It's a better made film. On a technical level, and it's quite a bit more serious. But I think this is a better Christmas horror movie. I think this gets you in the mood for Christmas much more than Black Christmas. And I don't think it's a surprise that I feel like this has been slowly usurping Black Christmas as the holiday staple for horror fans every December.
Yeah, because it makes Christmas so much a part of the horror.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's so mean and it's so wrong and it's so anti-Christmas that it comes back around to becoming festive.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so red, and so green, and so much imagery of Santa and everything that I think for me as a person who loves both horror and Christmas, this one's really, really hard for me to pass up every year. I feel like the season is incomplete now.
Yeah.
I don't see Silent Night, Deadly Night in December. I need to watch this film around Christmas, and it always puts me in the mood. I love, and the thing is, I love Christmas iconography and the visuals of Christmas and the reds and greens and the Santa Clauses and the decorations and the Christmas trees and then the snow and the white. I think it's Christmas has a really wonderful visual palette, and it's cool to see horror kind of playing around with that visual palette with the festivity of the spirit, the festivity in the spirit.
And I love when a movie like this embraces the campiness of it. but it's also not afraid to be dramatic and be actually scary and creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Like that when like after Linnea Quigley's kill, there's a pretty good fight with Quigley's boyfriend where he fights Billy with a fire poker and Billy throws him out the window. This little fight. But right after that, it's a really scene that I always thought was really scary when he asks the little girl if she's been naughty, and he pulls out the utility knife, and you think he's about to cut this little girl, and then he kind of gives it to her as a gift. I thought that was really tense, a scary scene. It still works for me.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love what that scene is doing. It's really playing with your fear that, like, with his idea of Christmas, Billy's idea, his snapped idea of what Santa Claus does is that it's not enough to be a good boy or a good girl all year round. You cannot have done any bad thing all year, which is ridiculous. We've all fucked
Yeah.
up in our lives multiple times throughout the year. It's literally impossible for anybody to be a good person all year round or to never make any mistakes. It's funny. So according to Billy's philosophy, if you really want to be honest about human nature, everybody is guilty at Christmas. Everybody is naughty and everybody should be punished. Nobody would get rewards. But that little girl is so sweet. You know what his philosophy is. And there's this ugly, and that's part of the mean spirit of this. There's this ugly tension that exists right there in that moment because you know that a child is in danger. And when he hands her the thing, it's the blade. It's creepy. It's unsettling. It's weird. But there's also a kind of relief there. An idea that, okay, we know we're mean-spirited, but we're not going to go this far. And there's a little layer of humor there as the girl is looking at it, very confused and not understanding. And then she goes off searching for her babysitter. I would have liked to have seen what her reaction is to when she finally located her babysitter and saw her impaled on the wall. But we don't get that. We just get the little teasing moments. But it's playing around with the danger of the movie. You feel that this movie is dangerous, but it doesn't cross over that edge where it would be unacceptable. I think if he would have killed the little girl, I think it probably would have left a bad taste in my mouth, and it probably would have taken it a step too far. But I like when movies and like stories kind of play with that idea, kind of tease it. They make you feel like, oh no, they're going to do something really awful, and they pull back a little bit and give you a little wink. I like moments like that.
And then they follow up that, pretty scary scene with something with a scene that completely embraces the camp and makes you howl with laughter every time. That great downhill sled scene when these two bullies take the sleds from these two kids, and then one of them gets decapitated coming down the hill. I laugh every time.
Oh, that scene is absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
Because they make those guys such assholes that you kind of gleefully happy giggling that guy's head's rolling down the hill.
So there's this gag in the film. I wouldn't call it a gag. It's this thing that happens where because he's dressed up as Santa and the police force has to look for somebody dressed as a killer Santa. They run into a couple of people who they think might be him, but they don't. One of them ends up getting killed. But the one that kind of sticks with me more that I don't understand is when the police are driving by, they see a Santa Claus going up into a window, somebody's like high window, and then they break into the house and it's Santa Claus breaking into the room of a little girl, and it's creepy. And then she says, "Daddy," and you realize that that's not Billy. It's just her dad's creeping into Santa Claus. What the fuck is he doing right there? Do you know how weird that is? Even if you like with context, it still doesn't make sense that this grown man would be sneaking into his daughter's window in the middle of the night dressed as Santa Claus while she's sleeping. It's weird.
Yeah.
I don't understand what's going on there. There's something, I don't know. That's not right. It's like,
it doesn't make sense that he would do that unless he planned for her to wake up and see him. If she wakes up and see him, it'll scare the shit out of her.
Yeah, I was like, so I don't know what the hell they were doing. I don't know what's going on in that scene, but I find it very odd every time I watch it. And every time I watch it kind of sticks out. I was like, okay, he's not the killer, but that's just weird. I don't care if that is your daughter. Who the fuck does that?
But still, every time I watch this movie, I get pissed at the end because you feel it's so clear that Mother Superior victimized this kid.
Oh yeah,
and she had a lot to do with him snapping. So I wanted him to get her so bad before he died, but he gets shot before he gets to her. But great ending though with the brother telling the Mother Superior naughty.
Yeah.
It's a great little moment.
One last thing I want to say about this, about that ending with Mother Superior. What I find interesting about Mother Superior as a character is, all right, she sucks, dude. I mean, she's not cool. The things that she does are really shitty. Her ideas of punishing people for sexuality, traumatizing this children, her utter lack of understanding or compassion for this kid who is clearly traumatized and went through this very brutal event. She has a very bad way of dealing with it. It's severely misguided. But I don't know if it's the script or it's the actress. I do get the sense in that last scene when Mother Superior is with the kids that she actually does care about these kids deep down, that she actually does have a heart. It's just that her methods are so profoundly misguided. She is not even aware that she is actually wrong. But I do get the sense that she does care, and I like that they added a little bit shading. I think it might have been the actress, a shading of complexity to get the sense when the children were scared. She seemed like she genuinely wanted to distract them or protect them or make sure that no harm came to them or anything. So,
She had this very authoritarian way of caring for them, though.
yeah, it's authoritarian. She's wrong, and I think like I said, I think she's misguided, and her ideas are fucking stupid and spot.
Yeah.
But as bad as she is, I don't think she's played as a straight villain. I think she's so misguided that she truly believes that her ways of doing things are the right ways and are the ones that are going to lead them on a righteous path. And obviously, like I said, it's wrong. But I appreciate that there's a moment where you get the sense that she does care. It's just her care is not working.
And that speaks to her acting performance and how great she was. She added layers to a performance in a cheesy slasher movie.
Yeah, it could have just been at the end. It could have Mother Superior could have just been like, a campy caricature, a one-dimensional bad guy, and it would have still been fun as it is. But I appreciated that she brought an extra human layer that you got to see a little bit of her heart underneath it. Maybe it's yeah, she still sucks, like I said, but at least I got the sense that she cares on some level.
And it had a nice little body count at 14, but only 9 of them were actually killed by Billy. And pretty much almost all of them were on-screen kills, which is pretty good. And a little bit of trivia, Robert Brian Wilson, who played Billy, he was so ashamed of the controversy and asked his friends and family not to watch the film. And he didn't change his mind till years later after attending a 30th anniversary screening and talked with fans about how much they loved it. So I like hearing those stories where these people in these old slasher movies, like even the cast of Evil Dead, like they could not believe that anybody liked that movie, that anybody was watching it until they meet fans.
Too?
Yeah.
Okay, I watched it recently too.
Hail to the Deadites.
Yeah.
And also, director Charles E. Sellier was so uncomfortable with the gore in the film that editor Michael Spence actually directed almost all of the kill scenes.
I can see that. I can definitely see that.
Like, why could you do such a kill-heavy movie if you're uncomfortable with the gore? And by the way, much more disturbing and gory kill scenes than both the other movies we're going to talk about combined.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, in general, even removing the Christmas label, it's probably one of the nastiest horror films I've seen, and it's not many movies come close. Not many horror movies come close to attempting this level of mean-spiritedness, the lurid, trashy quality that this movie has.
Yeah, and this one actually became so popular after the failure at the box office. It became popular on video, especially the uncut version that was released for a while. Had 4 sequels, with the 4th and 5th film having nothing to do with the first. There's a loose remake in 2012, which was okay, but not that great at all. And then there's a reboot plan for 2022.
Hopefully that reboot's good. Only thing I'm going to say, Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 is utter crap. It is an awful film on so many levels, and you must see it for that reason alone, because Jesus Christ, that movie has me rolling over and slapping my thighs. I have never seen such mugging for the camera. And we're not going to review Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, but I have a very deep appreciation for how awful that movie is. God, that movie is terrible. But it's so fun.
Isn't it something like 40 minutes of footage from the first one is in the second one?
Yeah, it repurposes 40 minutes of footage from the original one. It's so shameless in the way it does. It's so exploitative to even do that. It just shows how cheap it is. And I only think that kind of makes the movie funnier, that they shamelessly just took 40 minutes and just padded around it. But God, it's hilarious. Check out Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 when you get a chance. But don't watch them back to back because you'll probably get irritated because it repurposes 40 minutes of footage from the original one. But it's
Yeah.
fun in its own way.
And I just had one more thing to say about Silent Night, Deadly Night. Fuck Gene Siskel. Now, I'm saying this as a person who Siskel and Ebert were my favorite critics up until I really became steeped in the horror genre. And hearing movie after movie that they not only maligned, but they actively crusaded to ruin, fuck them, dude. It really pisses me off the more I hear it. So Gene Siskel was so offended by the film that he read the names of the companies that own the TriStar Pictures and named some of the producers and stuff, told people to go to their house and said, shame on you, then called out the writer, director, and producer and said, you people have nothing to be proud of. No, prick, you have nothing to be proud of.
And you know what's funny? He did the same thing with Betsy Palmer and Friday the 13th. I mean, Roger Ebert was not big on these movies either, but he did not go to the extreme doxing lengths that Gene Siskel went, where he felt like it was his personal mission. What's funny is that over the years, the controversy for slasher films and what a bad effect they are has kind of died off, and it's kind of become laughable and people look at the joke. That type of behavior that he engaged in of shaming people and sending people their houses and stuff like that is really frowned upon in this day
Yeah.
and age, and it's aged really poorly. And if he were alive, he would see how much that's actually sullied his legacy online. When people talk about his behavior, his childish reactions, I was like, I don't really give a shit that he was offended by this movie. I think it's funny. I think there's a certain thing that I like about horror where I don't need it to be, especially when it goes as dirty as this. I don't need fucking snooty, uptight critics to like it. I get a kick out of it when they don't. But that type of behavior it's crappy, it's inexcusable, it's toxic, it's bad, and it's aged really poorly, and it's a major stain on his legacy as a film critic, is his doxing behavior. He would be canceled today. Let's be honest. If that happened today, if a critic tried to pull the same thing because they didn't like a movie, they would get canceled. There would be articles written about them, and most of the culture would have told them to fuck off. So it ruined his legacy.
I actually think it's hilarious when uptight people are offended by horror. There's nothing funnier than that. But when they crusade to ruin someone or disparage someone's name as an artist just because it doesn't fit your sensibilities, that's just wrong.
Yeah, it's childish too.
Yeah. So that brings us to Krampus from 2015. This one's a newer classic. A lot of people love this. I don't love it. I do recognize a lot of good things about it, but I was really disappointed because I love Trick or Treat as a Halloween staple. So I really wanted this to be a Christmas horror staple, but it's not. I never want to watch this movie again after watching it this time, after giving it a second chance. It's directed by Michael Dougherty, who I think is a great director. He did Trick or Treat, of course, and Godzilla King of the Monsters. It's written by Todd Casey. Now, this is where the problem comes in, I think. It's written by Todd Casey, who wrote Transformers cartoons, Thundercats, Hulk, Ninja Turtles. He's a cartoon writer. And then Michael Dougherty and Zach Shields helped write. So this was Zach Shields' first film, and he was the executive producer. And he did the story in the last two Godzilla movies. So he's a guy that works closely with Michael Dougherty. So really no name writers who really did anything else. But excellent cast in this. This is another reason why I'm so disappointed in this movie, because of the stellar cast. Adam Scott, he was in Hellraiser Bloodline. Of course, Step Brothers was one of his best performances. If you get a chance to see The Vicious Kind, that's when he was finally used to his greatest potential. Watch The Vicious Kind. It's awesome. He gets into a love affair with his brother's girlfriend. So great. It's really mean-spirited, but really good. He was also in Piranha 3D. The Overnight was good. I showed you that one.
Yes.
It's like a indie talkie movie. Little Evil, I thought was crap by the director of Tucker and Dale versus Evil. It's like a takeoff of Omen, like a really bad Omen tribute. And then he was also in Parks and Rec, of course. And then the great Toni Collette, of course, from Hereditary, The Sixth Sense, Knives Out. David Koechner, I love him, especially in Cheap Thrills. I think that's the best I've seen him is in Cheap Thrills. He was in The Office and the Anchorman movies. Alison Tolman, I love her. She was in from the Fargo TV show, and she was in The Gift, the Joel Edgerton movie with Jason Bateman. MJ Anthony as Max. I thought he was one of the best things about this movie, the kid Max. He was in Chef with Jon Favreau and Bad Moms with Mila Kunis. And then last but not least, Conchata Ferrell as Aunt Dorothy. She is one from 2.5 Men.
Berta.
Yep. So she was really good in all the actors were good in it. I think the problem was the script for me. So the synopsis is: a boy becomes disgusted with Christmas because of his dysfunctional family and accidentally summons Krampus, the demon, and his hordes of elves and murderous toys to relentlessly attack the family on Christmas. This one is another one, just like Silent Night, Deadly Night. Perfect opening for a Christmas horror movie. They play beginning to look a lot like Christmas while showing people trample each other during a Black Friday sale. Perfect. You follow that into a great dysfunctional family with an even more annoying family member showing up. A great setup, but it abandons everything it set up for a very generic story beats monster movie, and no interesting character interactions after that great setup. David Koechner, perfect annoying uncle. Talking about guns at the table with his kids with camouflaged hats, and he wants his daughter to be a boy. It's written for you, dude. It's written for you. You could have expanded on all this conflict, all this. There's comedy there waiting. There's conflict waiting. There's even emotion that could have been inserted into the script, and I didn't see any of that after the whole attack. But there's some parts that I love, like Krampus when he first chases the girl through the snow. I thought that was pretty cool because I think the less they show of the threat in this movie, the better it is. The more they show the threat, the less I liked it. The evil toys, I liked the angel ornament. I thought that was the best one out of all the evil toys. I thought the teddy bear was lame, like a teddy bear with a giant teeth and shit. The big giant Jack-in-the-Box, it looked like it was made out of paper mache. The way it was filmed seemed like it should have been scary, but it just looked too fake, too paper mache for me. The robot was okay, but if you notice, all these killer toys are similar, almost exact, actually, to the film Demonic Toys, which I think is a much superior film, a much more fun film, but it's all the same toys from Demonic Toys.
Okay. So I like this movie a lot. I think it's a total blast having watched it a second time. I kind of get what you're saying, but I think it's a simple premise executed very well. I liked all the toys. I like the paper mache Jack-in-the-Box. For one, it's a toy. It is made out of paper mache. That's the whole idea behind it. And I think that's what makes it kind of cool, is that they're toys. They're not living objects. And I think that's what makes it kind of creepy. The gingerbread men are probably overplayed a little bit, only because there's an element of goofiness to it. But overall, I really dig this film, and I think I enjoyed what it was going for. I thought there was a nice little viciousness without being too vicious. It's not like Silent Night, Deadly Night, where it seems like it's massacring the holiday and massacring the spirit of the holiday. I think this is a different kind of Christmas horror movie. In a weird way, I think it embraces the spirit of the holiday in a certain way, and it's kind of about people who act shitty around the holidays, of people who don't appreciate their family around the holidays, people who act ridiculous. David Koechner, God, that guy gets on my nerves. The actor is good, but I associate him with Packard from The Office, who is like the fucking worst character of all time. He used to get on my nerves. But this role is perfect for him. All his comments is totally written for him, like you said. There's that funny line that him and his wife have, where it's like, why do rich people get all the presents? And there's like, they're probably Democrats or some shit like that. Stuff like that. I know family members. I know family members that are kind of like that. I like the grandmother in this movie a lot. I like the element.
She was good.
I think my favorite part of the movie, and it's interesting now being made aware by you that it was written by cartoon writers. It's funny. I actually think the part that's the most inventive and a little bit more original is the cartoon section of the movie when the grandmother's telling the story, that kind of storybook, that storybook tale that she tells of how she first encountered Krampus, and they massacred her family on Christmas. Um, Overall, I think it's a fun movie. I don't think it's like I know, because a movie like Trick or Treat explores every facet of Halloween, and I think that's why it's more of a Halloween staple, because the multiple storylines allow it to explore a lot of different tropes of Halloween and a lot of different rules of Halloween, whereas this is just one story about one family. But I think on that level, it kind of works. I kind of cared about this family in spite of how much they pissed me off, because I kind of know people like this. I'm not going to name family members on this, but I have a couple of family members who I think could fall into the category of some of the people here. I know the aunt, Conchetta Farrell, the one that she's playing.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of aunts like that. I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not naming names, but she reminds me of people that I know. Um, but yeah, I enjoy it. I think it's a fun movie. I don't think there's much to it, like you said. Like, it's not a terribly complicated setup. It's just kind of like a home invasion Christmas movie, where they're just trying to get inside the house and terrorize them. But I think for the most part, for me, it kind of plays with the Christmas season very well, and it shows just how ungrateful or shitty people act during the holidays. Because I know it's become this thing for holidays where you're forced sometimes to hang out with people you don't want to hang out with, people that you don't want to be around, and you kind of
Yeah.
disgusted by them. So I actually understand the kid's sentiment of wanting people to get along better. And also, I don't want to spoil the ending. I like the ending. I think it has a very creepy quality to it when he finally opens that present at the end and sees the Krampus toy, and they all look at each other, and there's a very uncomfortable quality, almost like they didn't live through last night, but they know what it is. They know somewhere in their mind that this happened, even though they can't really kind of place it. Reminds me a little bit of Donnie Darko, in the moment where all the characters wake up and the reality is different, but they look haunted by this alternate reality that never actually took place. And it goes even a little weird step further. I'm not going to say how it ends, but I enjoyed it. I liked Adam Scott in this movie. I always liked Toni Collette. Um, and the Toni Collette character in some ways reminded me a little bit of my mom, in the sense that she goes all out for Christmas, and she decorates she like tries to make the whole house very much in the spirit of the season. And sometimes you have those asshole relatives who come and make snide comments, and it pisses you off. It's like, you know what? Why don't we go to your fucking house and you decorate and you put in hours of time baking? And Chris, like, definitely felt her frustration. But there's a lot of this that I felt relatable. Given I do understand your criticisms, it's a pretty simplistic movie. I don't really think that there's much to it. But I think it also helps that for me, it's a pretty brief movie. It goes by fast, and if there was sort of stretched out like another 15-20 minutes, it would definitely start outstaying its welcome, because of what it is. But on the level of what it's aiming for, it kind of worked for me.
Well, like I was saying before, I recently watched a really, really slow burn for Roger. It was at a movie from Shockfest Film Festival. Super slow, and almost bored to tears as it began, but it ended up paying off so well that I ended up enjoying the whole experience. And for this one, for a film this fun and with such a great setup, for me to be bored to tears at a certain point, it was just awful for me. Like, especially how great the setup was. The awesome cast is utilized great as far as the dysfunctional family, and everything great about David Koechner kind of disappears once the monsters attack. Everything great about all the characters kind of disappears. Once the monsters attack, they just become hopeless victims who don't really say much to each other to really advance any kind of story or characterization. So for me, once the family barricades themselves in the house, the film comes to a screeching halt with nothing. I don't think anything interesting happening or being said for long periods of time. And then there'd be moments of greatness, like even though I didn't like the little gingerbread man at all, the first appearance is pretty good. When the hook comes down, the hook comes down, and he comes down and sucks the kid up into the chimney. I thought that was really cool. The awesome, like you said, the awesome telling of the Krampus story, the animated Krampus story coming from the grandma.
Mm-hmm.
And but the bonding in a crisis and the character development is just poorly written, in my opinion. No interesting, funny, or even sarcastic dialogue after once they barricade themselves in. It's not even emotionally charged after that, and they set up a lot of characters and a lot of interactions where it could have been emotionally charged. Once they started, this dysfunctional family kind of at each other's throats, and then they start bonding through a tragedy like this or through this attack. Like I said, I didn't like the design of the Jack in the Box, but I get what you're saying, that it was a toy. I just didn't like the design of it. I thought the action of the attacks should have been scary, but they weren't. Now the elves, when they come out, I got excited when the elves came out. I said, now we're talking. Now this looks scary. They look designed well. They come at a crazy time where you're used to dealing with all these killer toys, and all of a sudden, oh shit, here come the elves, and they storm the place, and you're like, oh yeah, I get excited, and then they take off. Krampus calls them back, and they disappear. I was like, oh no, I was enjoying it. So then Krampus actually appears an hour and 17 minutes into the film, and I don't think he was worth the wait. He has a weird Santa-like mask on. There's nothing scary or interesting about it. You get a feeling like there's a scary face under there, but you barely get a glimpse of it. I don't like the design of Krampus at all. It builds up to a great climax. Then the remaining characters are just snatched up in the snow like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's picking off everybody one at a time. It gets to this crescendo, and all of a sudden, boop boop, a couple major characters are gone, but I like when the boy faces Krampus. I thought that was pretty cool. But it's just a dream. Come on.
I don't think that's what it is. It's not just a dream.
I know, but I mean, but they have no recollection of it, and it's portrayed like it was a dream. But then, it maybe it wasn't a dream. Oh, it's so overdone.
I like the end. I think it's more that Krampus kind of trapped this family, and it's part of his collection of bad families that he's gotten over Christmas inside the snow globes.
But that was almost cool for me, the snow globes thing. But then Krampus's hand as he watching everybody in the snow globes, and then, as far as I'm concerned, the toys jumping up into the camera, I felt like it was a fuck you to the people who wanted this to be good. One last little fuck you.
I think that's just how you're perceiving it. I don't think Michael Dougherty is actually going to fuck you to the audience, though.
Of course, but that's the way it made me feel. Like this is almost good. It almost gets good. It almost gets like I'm liking it, and then these things jump out in my face.
I mean, what the toys kind of remind me of, or what it's most reminiscent of, is the toys that in The Nightmare Before Christmas that all the denizens of Halloween Town make. Those twisted Christmas toys that they think are good Christmas toys. So it's kind of like that kind of setup. They have like a snake that eats the tree in The Nightmare Before Christmas, and the Jack in the Box that's chasing the kid around. I think it's kind of taking some of those ideas of like these toys terrifying people on Christmas and taking it a step further and making it a little bit more mean, a little bit nastier. But I think it has like a certain kind of boppy energy to it for me. There's a fun kind of zaniness to it. And maybe they could have done something a little more with the characters after all the development that they did. They don't really change that much. But, I mean, that might be part of the point. The reason that they're all stuck in that globe at the end is because none of them learned their fucking lesson. Even amidst all of the tension and even the horror that they faced up against, realizing that Krampus is only coming for them because of how shitty they are to each other and what a crappy family, they still don't have the ability to be that decent to each other right until they're about to get killed. And I think that's kind of fucked up, and it's kind of sad, but I think it's how a lot of people actually are in real life, and I think it adds to the mean-spiritedness. But I also think, unlike Silent Night, Deadly Night, I think this is a movie that is trying to extol the virtues of Christmas. It's like striking out. It's like, damn you, act right. When you go see your family, appreciate them. Appreciate being around them. Don't act a certain way. Be better people. Now, again, that's not a very complex message. I'm not going to pretend like it's like a message of profound depth or anything, but I think it's one that works for a zany Christmas horror movie.
Yeah, I just wanted to be explored a little bit more, the setup, because I got so excited by the setup. I couldn't wait for it to be further explored, but it just didn't explore it for me. But I do respect that they use so much of real Krampus folklore, especially in Austria and Germany. They actually use that for some of the killer toys and even the Krampus design. It's just too many things about it that was a turnoff for me. And I actually actively tried to like it, and I was rooting for it as I watched it, because I wanted to be wrong about it, because I watched it once when it was my birthday movie, and I thought maybe I just didn't manage my expectations enough. I was hoping to enjoy it more on this time around, and I really was enjoying it for a good portion of it. But then, like I said, once they get barricaded in the house, I didn't really enjoy it anymore. And I don't like the design of any of the creatures or anything, except for that doll wings. That was pretty creepy.
Oh yeah, that was pretty creepy.
But Universal would not greenlight this movie until Legendary Pictures agreed on a PG-13 rating, because of the controversy surrounding Silent Night, Deadly Night, and Black Christmas and things like that. So the last movie we talked about kind of affected the rating of this one so many years later.
All these decades later, really?
I know.
I don't know. It's funny as like we laugh at those controversies now. I don't really. Yeah, that's strange to me. I mean, I remember when this came out, it was a pretty mainstream release. It didn't kick up that much controversy, did it? I don't remember any controversy, actually.
Not really.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So I think they could have went a little nastier with it, especially as nasty as Trick or Treat was, because that's a nasty little film right there.
Yeah, but I actually agree. I would have liked it to be a little bit more violent and brutal. But what you're saying, I guess, makes sense.
I just wanted something more. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I picked this last movie, Once Upon a Time at Christmas. It's from 2017. It's a blind choice, blind pick. I was hoping to choose a modern, very indie, very low budget, fun horror film, hoping that it would be better than Krampus. Hoping that it would be a more fun, a little better of a Christmas movie. Boy, was I wrong. As many problems as I had with Krampus, holy hell, Once Upon a Time at Christmas is so much worse.
Yeah. Get into this. I have my own criticisms too, but let's get into this one.
Okay, this one is Once Upon a Time at Christmas from 2017, directed by Paul Tanter. This is his 13th feature, believe it or not. It just does not look like a feature that's from a veteran who's done 13 features before. But it's written by Christopher Jolly, story by Paul Tanter and Simon Phillips. Simon Phillips is the one that plays Santa Claus. Selah Day Gode is Mrs. Claus. Susanna McKay, and I must admit, I've seen Susanna McKay that plays Courtney. I've seen her in it, and she was so beautiful and has like a presence. So I kind of watched it. I watched it for her too, but she wasn't enough to save this. And then Barry Kennedy as Sheriff Mitchell. I thought Barry Kennedy as Sheriff Mitchell was by far the best thing about this movie. I think he was the best actor in the movie. I think he made some of these bad lines actually sound sincere. So the premise is, when serial killers dressed as Santa and Mrs. Claus go on a murder spree in a small town, it's up to a young girl and a cop to figure out the pattern of increasing homicides as Christmas draws closer. So it starts on like the 14th and it keeps going 15th, 16th, 17th. And believe it or not, there's actually a sequel to this called The Nights Before Christmas. This was in 2019. I have no desire to see it. But listen to this. After watching this movie, can you believe it had a $1 million budget?
Really?
Why? How? And it's from the UK, but it sounds Canadian, doesn't it?
I thought it was Canadian.
I thought it was too, but it's from the UK.
I didn't even check the country of origin. It's just the way that it played out, and I could have swore I heard several people say sorry in a booth. Yeah. I heard that so many times that my brain's, it's Canadian. But yeah.
I was convinced it was Canadian, but no, it's UK. Somehow it starts out both promising and clunky at the same time, almost from scene to scene. Like, oh, this is promising. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, no, it's not. It's literally hit or miss from the beginning, and then goes downhill more rapidly around the halfway mark. It just goes into doldrums of crap. So the kills. I thought it would at least have some good kills. Almost all the kills are off screen or cut before the kill even happens. Lots of okay or very cheap looking axe to the face kills. That's the only ones you really see on screen is someone get an axe to the face or the back. All of them are cheesy and poorly done. I lost count at 15 kills, but not just because there's abundance of kills, just because it's so hard to keep up with what's off screen, what's on screen. There was barely any kills on screen. Too much mundane mall conversation. The girls in the mall just going rattling on and on about nothing. Too much conversations between the cops and the FBI. That's so much overkill. It's like they say what they're going to say. They say kind of the purpose of the scene, and then they keep talking and they keep talking. Too much flimsy family drama. Santa ends up talking too much. But I did like the killing of the mall girls in the bathroom and then leaving Courtney alive. I thought that was kind of cool just because they had a purpose that they were following. And when the cops leave the precinct to look for the killers, so they break in and kill all the FBI agents, that should have been awesome, but they didn't show any of it.
You know, I don't really find that scene believable at all.
No.
There's like he walks away. I mean, I'll give him this. It seemed like they were trying to do like a cool, interesting camera angle by like following the character out of the room, going back, and then he just walks back and everybody's slaughtered and lying dead. I'm like, so there was no noise. You snuck into. I mean, I'm not trying to like simp for the FBI here, but I'm pretty sure they're more competent than that. It didn't seem believable that they broke in and they silently killed everybody while everybody stood still. A room full of 6 or 7 cops, and they all got slaughtered by these 2 people silently while he went to just go walk somewhere to pick up a file and come back. And we didn't hear any of it. Nothing. It was like, it's not remotely believable. Most of the actors in this movie deliver their lines like it's the first time they've ever spoken before.
Yes.
There are so many times where it seems like it's like they're discovering how to say words for the first time when it comes out of their mouth. And to make it worse, the dialogue is stupid. And I think it's bad. It's kind of like laughably bad at times, and I think it's only the stilted acting and the oh my god, I'm on camera quality of it makes it even worse. I like who's the actor who played the old man, the sheriff, the one in charge?
That was Barry Kennedy.
Barry Kennedy. I'll give him credit. I feel like he put in a heroic attempt to try to rein this in and try to give us a little bit more gravitas. There's only so much you can do with a script like this. The Santa Claus talks too much. The family drama is flimsy and stupid and contrived, and it's almost dumb that that's what the premise for the movie is. It's not menacing. They think they're being menacing. I feel like the Mrs. Claus was going for like a Harley Quinn type of thing.
Or Baby Firefly.
Baby Firefly or something, and it totally falls so flat on his face, and it does not work at all. Other than that bathroom kill scene you mentioned, I can't really recall any of these kills that I just saw the other day. A car burns up.
Yeah, and that was cheesy too. And then the girl that gets in the gym pool, and they really take their time with it. They really set it up like this is gonna be an awesome kill sequence. And then the girl gets to the edge and she looks up and Santa stands there laughing. Cut scene.
It was a lot of build up to nothing. I mean, there's little moments where I see some kind of cool camera work here and there. Like I said, when he leaves the room and he comes back, I get what they're going for, but it's just the context is not believable. It's the most unbelievable, like ridiculous FBI agents in the world. Like I said, I don't believe they actually broke in and slaughtered them all silently, and none of them put up a fight. None of them busted out their gun, and there's no mayhem. Get the fuck out of here. It's not believable.
Yeah.
In any way, shape, form, or whatever. And I don't know. It's just.
And don't you think it should have been easy to make the strip club massacre cool? It's so tacky. It was almost cool just because it's a strip club massacre by Mr. and Mrs. Claus, but it's tacky. There's a handful of on-screen attacks, but they're very cheaply done because you're like, oh, finally some on-screen kills, but then you see somebody with an axe in their head and they fall to the ground.
Yeah, it's very poorly written, and I think there's some pretensions in the script that make the writing seem even worse than it is, because it tries to do this thing. I don't know what it thinks it's doing, but I think it's saying something meaningful about the politics of a small town and how the mayor's office holds up, and how kind of like holds up the ability for law enforcement to do their job correctly.
Mm.
How a lot of it is politics. How the mayor is just trying to get reelected, so he's kind of downplaying the situation and like trying to push the responsibility off onto other people while being directly responsible. And I think the movie thinks it's saying something meaningful about small town politics, and it isn't. We've heard all this before. Not that I don't agree that politicians probably do this quite frequently, get in the way of actually helping people for the sake of their reelection. I'm not saying that's not a thing that happens. That happens all the time, but it's not explored in any way that's actually interesting. And you get the sense of like, so do you think this like shores your movie up, or do you think this makes it more meaningful to put the small town politics aspect and how nobody's able to do anything because the politicians are crooked and the FBI won't cooperate? And like, what are you doing? Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand what the point of all that is. It's not explored in any intelligent way, and it's all very cliched in what it's trying. Like, haven't we seen that before? I feel like those elements we've seen it done better so many times before. It just seems dumb, and I think those pretensions only make the script look dumber than it actually is.
But boy, was it ambitious. They swung really hard for this one. That script is just so heavy, and there's so many plots and subplots going on, and then the dialogue comes off as flat. And not only is it bad dialogue, it's tons and tons of it. Like this script must have been 200 pages long.
Yeah,
so much dialogue. And then the whole mystery of the killing, right? That like trying to find a pattern, right? And they keep going back to the mystery, and you figure out the mystery way too early, and then the cops almost seem mentally challenged when they finally figure out, oh, it's a 12 Days of Christmas pattern. Like, duh, dude, you didn't guess that? Like, one of the families was Frenchins for French hens, and then they kill 6 geese. Come on.
Yeah, it's something that the audience figures out way ahead of the cops, and it just makes them look more incompetent. And what makes that even funnier, it seems like it wants to make a hero out of the small town police force. Like, look how good they're doing, and the mayor fucked this up, and the FBI came and ruined this, but these small town cops, they did a great. I'm like, no, they didn't. They took forever to figure out something that was very obvious from the get-go, and then every time they figured out the next part of it, they acted like this was some mind-blowing revelation that, oh my god, I cracked the code, I figured it out. Like, okay.
And that mayor was so over the top cheesy and
Dumb.
Yeah, dumb and skeevy and
And look, that's the problem with some of, like, I understand that movies, sometimes we have one-dimensional bad guys, and I get that. That's okay to have one-dimensional bad guys. I'm not one of those people who's like, they're not fully developed. But there has to be something a little bit more underneath, something to suggest that they're a real person. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And not just like a suppository for the writer to like work out all their anger against mayors and politicians, which is fine. But if you go back to a movie like Silent Night, Deadly Night, obviously you look at Mother Superior. You don't like her. In many ways, she is kind of a one-dimensional villain in her behavior. Yet there's still more layers to her as a person, and you get the sense behind that caricature and that one-dimensional caricature, there actually is a human being inside there. This mayor is not a real person. It's just it's just something for the writers to work out their anger against the political system, which I can sympathize with, I can understand, but you have to explore it in a more interesting way. And you have to at least acknowledge that he also is a person.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you need to humanize him a whole lot, but I mean, he's not believable. I don't believe that that's a person. That's just like a writer's construct of a corrupt, sleazy mayor, not a real sleazy mayor.
Mayors are not that outright sleazy. They're sleazy behind closed doors and where you're not seeing them, you know?
Yeah. And at least give us a sense that they're a person, that they're actually a human fucking being. I mean, we got the sense that Mother Superior, for all her one-dimensional qualities, there was actually a human being there. I don't get that at all with this. And the corny cliched scene where the sheriff, you fucked this up, and punches the mayor in the face. I'm like, oh my God, you think this movie is so important and it's not. Stop with all this stuff.
Yeah, it makes the character development in Krampus look like Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And then that big reveal that had to do with the main character and her mother, I did not care about it. And this was followed by Santa talking way too much and trying to convince the girl to kill. It just got worse as the climax kind of played itself out.
So what
And then
was the point he was trying to make by trying to get to kill? I don't understand what the point of all that was. What was the lesson? He wanted his daughter back, but he wants to teach her that she's capable of killing like him. And
yeah,
I
it
don't
was so convoluted. All I got was I'm a killer, and now that it's revealed that I'm your dad, you're going to be a killer too. And he seemed so convinced that he was going to make
Okay,
this girl
but
into
why?
a killer.
But why?
I couldn't tell.
Like I mean, I get that's what's going on, but I don't really see the purpose of it, or if he even has a point to make. And I think that's what makes villains compelling, especially if we want to do this whole mystery thing, which is very reminiscent of something like Seven or Saw, movies like that, where you set up this like mystery and you're trying to figure out the motives of the killer, and to have it to be something as stupid and as trite as that because he wants to prove, like, why does he have like a greater goal in mind? There's no thought put into it. It's not dastardly enough. It almost seems kind of goofy, the fact that so he just wanted to prove that his daughter could kill too. Because why? I don't know. I don't get it. John Doe and Seven had a good, and I'm not saying that this has to be the level of Seven. I'm not even trying to suggest that. But come on, there has to be something there, right? There has to be something.
Yeah, I would have been happy with cheesy fun. This wasn't even that.
No. And I think this movie would have been better off if it just embraced itself as cheesy fun and didn't have such an overly ambitious script that thought it was saying something a lot more meaningful than it actually is. And like I said, these actors just seem like they've never spoken words before when they're delivering some of their lines, and it's just so awkward and strange. I was like, is this intentional? Is this supposed to be surreal? It has,
Yeah.
you know what it reminds me of? You know how in David Lynch movies some of the characters have strange or awkward interactions and stuff, but you get the feeling that it's there with purpose, that you kind of feel that it gives off the dreamlike quality. Some people think it's bad, but it's not. There's actually a lot of brilliance going on in movies like Mulholland Drive or Lost Highway, where the characters have these very awkward interactions, but it just seems like that's intentional and it goes towards thickening the strange atmosphere. This seems like it's done out of incompetence.
Yeah. And it seems like it could have been a good movie. Doesn't it seem like a plethora of locations for such a small movie?
Yeah.
And it's ones that aren't very easy to get.
I think they should have just reduced the motive to something simple. And this does something that I hate in movies. I hate when movies do this. I hate movies that have mysteries that you can't guess until like a moment before the movie reveals to you what it is. Why should I give a shit about this? You want us to like go along, you're stringing this along to try to figure out why this is going on. And then the motives are so obscure that there's no way any audience member would be able to guess it, and we're supposed to be shocked by these revelations as they come. I hate that. If you don't fucking put the hints early on of where this is leading to or what the mystery is, if you're going to build up this big mystery, it's the 12 days of Christmas and like all this investigation, and for what?
Yeah. And what did the 12 days of Christmas have to do with the reveal?
What does that have to do with his mission? What does that have to do with anything? Like, I don't really get, like, it just seems wandering and pointless, and it aspires to do so many ambitious things, and it does none of them well.
Yeah, and then that wink at the camera at the end with Mrs. Claus saying, "You better watch out," it somehow made a bad movie even worse. That just put a horrible cap on a bad movie.
And usually when movies do this thing, this is another thing that it does that indicates its ambitions. When movies start at an end scene and then rewind all the way back, we're going to show you how we got to this end scene. It's usually with purpose. I'm like, so why did we start with that scene in the first place to come back to it? Is there a reason? I don't think it really enriches the movie in any way that, now we know why that psycho Mrs. Claus was in the jail cell. I'm like, so what? Who gives a shit? It doesn't like enrich the story, and you could cut out that whole beginning and it doesn't make a damn bit of difference into like how the reveals are. As like, well, like it's telling you we're going to show you how we ended up here, and ooh, there's this mystery going on, and the small town politics, and all this, and the 12 days of Christmas. And it's all confused. It just seems very confused. And look, I don't like bashing movies that are made at this level. I really don't, and it actually makes me a little bit uncomfortable to have to do that, because I understand, being at the level we are, what it is like to like struggle, or when you're doing these low budget films. But you have to put something else into it. Otherwise, if this is going to be what this is, they should have just embraced this as some campy slasher and not so much politics. They use all that budget just maybe towards gore, a funny killer, or like some mayhem. Like it just seems like a waste. I feel like they could have done so much more with what they were doing. It just should have embraced something trashy and fun, and I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more.
And just the way we labor over our scripts to make them perfect, and to avoid so many things that this script does that gets wrong. And we try so hard to avoid it, and it just seems like they didn't try with this one. It seems like they had the budget already or something, and they just wrote whatever they wanted to, because it's way too many locations for this story. And if they would have just cut down on locations and gave us more on-screen kills, it would have been more enjoyable. Cut down on the dialogue,
Get rid of the small town politics, because you're not saying anything remotely deep or meaningful about it. It's all just cliches. Cut out all the characters too. There's too many characters. This movie has way too many people it's keeping track of, and pointlessly so. It's like, who cares about all these people? They don't really add anything to what the story ends up being about anyway. In fact, that whole commentary about the mayor and the politics actually has nothing to do with the main plot of the story, and it doesn't even like strengthen it or any way or comment on it. Usually when you want to add that political layer to like a horror movie or a genre film, it's usually used to strengthen the themes of the main narrative that are going on, kind of shores it up. This just seems pointless. Like, okay, so the mayor of this town sucks. Right on.
Yeah. And look how long the scenes were in the mall with the girls talking. I mean, maybe I'm out of touch or something, but I honestly zoned out. I didn't know anything they were ever talking about. Do you? I honestly, I don't know what they're talking about.
The only thing that was mildly amusing to me, and it was really, this is just mildly amusing just because it's crude, is one girl said that for Christmas she wants a boyfriend with a huge cock. Like, that's it. Like, that is the sum total of the dialogue that I remember amongst them all, is that she said, I'm like, okay. Like,
yeah. And what does that have to do with anything? And why stay on them so long if they're just going to talk about stuff like that?
I here's another thing I remember. Their boyfriends. Their boyfriends are weird. They don't even make sense as their boyfriends. They come along like you're being like, they're acting like they're being graded on being boyfriends, and your report card's coming up, and you're like, oh, we better do. What is this? I don't get it.
It's so mundane.
Oh man.
With whatever this movie was going for, I didn't get it.
I didn't either. And to be honest, I'm not convinced that the filmmakers got it either, even understand what they were going for. But I digress. I mean, the bathroom kill scene is kind of cool. Kind of. It's not even that great. It's just, in the context of this, it's good.
Yeah, and the premise is kind of cool, but it just handled so poorly. Like, I wanted to see a Mr. and Mrs. Claus serial killers doing a 12 Days of Christmas killing spree, but they just added too much to it. They just piled so many things on top of other things. The story
about the mental asylum, and then it burned down, and the unaccounted for victims, and like, it's all delivered through exposition too. You don't really learn any information of this information visually. It's just characters talking to each other, which is another thing I hate. I hate that shit. I understand exposition is important, and dialogue is great. I love good, snappy dialogue and banter. But there comes a point where this is a visual art form, and you need to be able to show what's happening. And for long periods of time, it just required the characters to rant at the camera to explain what's happening. That is not a good way to shoot a movie, in my view.
Yeah, and a lot of the cop scenes, I could tell exactly what they were talking about within a minute of the scene starting, and that would go on, like kind of saying the same things in long-winded soliloquies.
Yeah. I don't know how long this was. It wasn't a long movie, but it was at least 40 minutes too long too.
Yeah. think it was all that dialogue. They just wanted to pack that dialogue into scene after scene.
Yeah. Honestly, there's not much for me to recommend this movie. I wouldn't recommend it to really anybody, to be quite honest. I feel like if you want to get like your good holiday slashers in or your Christmas horror, look elsewhere. Check out Silent Night, Deadly Night. I know you don't like Krampus, but Krampus is a much better option for holiday horror than this is. Check out Black Christmas. Watch Secret Santa, the film from Adam Marcus. Christmas Evil is another good one. Watch something else. There's just better Christmas horror. All the Creatures Were Stirring by Dr. Rebecca McKendry. There's just so many better Christmas horror movies that this just does not cut it. And like I said, Silent Night, Deadly Night. If you really want a really bad Christmas horror movie, then check out Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. That at least is fun. That movie recognizes what it is, and it knows that it's stupid and it's cheesy, but it embraces it, and it's fun, and it kind of makes you laugh along with the filmmakers, and there's a sense of goofiness that is kind of infectious in that movie. As bad as it is, this is bad without being self-aware enough to even embrace anything campy or fun about it.
And even the remake of Silent Night, Deadly Night, Silent Night, and that was better than this.
I never saw
that. That one is one that it's campy and B movie, but it embraces those qualities. So it's more fun than this, but it's still not great.
Yeah, not at all.
But even watch that over this.
Yeah.
But there's so many now. Did you see all those that they added to Tubi?
Oh yeah.
That's why I just randomly picked this one. There was so many, I didn't know which one to pick, and I made the wrong choice. Sorry about that, James.
It's okay. We're bound to watch bad movies from time to time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but regardless, Christmas horror is fun when it's done right, and this is an example of it not being done right. But hey, that's okay. There's other things out there. So anyways, do you have anything more to say about this one?
That's it for me. There wasn't much more to say about this and that. I don't want to bash it anymore.
Neither do I. I think we're done. But yeah, Christmas, one of my favorite times of the year. As a horror fan, like I said, most horror fans kind of balk at the Christmas season, but I enjoy it. I love it. I always have a good time this time of year. And like I said, there's a lot of good Christmas horror for you to check out. And there's a lot of good, I understand some people don't like being oversaturated with like the sweetness of the holidays and, like the overwhelming sentiment. But I think there's other Christmas movies that do that without like laying it on thick. I mean, Die Hard's a good example. That's a great Christmas movie. Batman Returns is another one. Totally a Christmas movie, by the way. Everything revolves around Christmas, the kiss under the mistletoe, the tree lighting ceremony. I think Christmas is inherently cinematic. The visuals of Christmas are ripe to be exploited by filmmakers, whether it's a sincere Christmas movie like Home Alone, which is one of my favorites, obviously, or it's a mean-spirited one. I just feel like the visuals and the iconography of Christmas are just ripe to be exploited by filmmakers.
Yeah, and as far as straight Christmas movies, I highly recommend Get Santa, especially for horror fans who like their Christmas movies a little more edge to them. It does have an edge to it. It's a British movie, and it's done by Christopher Smith. It's the director of Severance and Triangle. It's sweet, it's sentimental, but it has layers to it. Very well written. It uses the Christmas folklore in a very creative way, and it feels real. It feels like a real true to life, like a grounded fantasy film. So I highly recommend Get Santa.
That's a good one. I mean, the only ones I could recommend are just the typical ones. Home Alone is one of my favorites. The Nightmare Before Christmas, that's another one. I think that's one. To me, that's more of a Christmas movie than a Halloween movie. I mean, people debate about that, and it definitely can fall under both categories. But to me, The Nightmare Before Christmas is about Halloween people. It's about people like us. It's about horror people who kind of delve into like a lot of dark entertainment, and from time to time it's refreshing to see something nice or pretty, like the moment Jack Skellington walks into Christmas land and his mind is blown and he sees the happiness and the candy canes and the colors and the general spirit of all. I can relate to that as somebody who mostly dwells in dark entertainment. From time to time, it's nice to be refreshed by a little bit of sincerity or sentimentality from time to time. There's nothing wrong with sentimentality from time to time, I don't think.
Yeah, it reminds you that Christmas isn't completely, homogenized and
I mean,
corporate,
yeah, I love Christmas. I understand that the corporate quality to it, but I like it because it's a fun time of the year for me. I like the way that the season looks. I like the visuals of Christmas. And I like, in general, for the most part, I actually get along with my family on Christmas. I like getting together with the family. I like seeing people I haven't seen in a while. I like the eggnog. I enjoy it. There's a general fondness I have for the Christmas holiday. And yeah, I love Christmas movies, Christmas horror, straight Christmas. It's a great time of year for me.
Yeah, and plus with Christmas horror, it's a subgenre that enriches itself each and every year. It seems to be more and more Christmas horror to come out each year for us to sink our teeth into. So there's going to be plenty more after this.
Yep. Well, anyways, folks, this will be our last podcast of the year. We're going to be busy with the holiday season, obviously. Michael here has a family, has kids, has a wife, so he's going to be pretty busy. I got my own family to deal with and to contend with for a while, but we will be back next year with more podcasts. We're gonna kick off the year really good. When we come back next year, we're going to talk a little bit about the crowdfunding campaigns that we have planned, all the stuff we have on the horizon, lots of exciting stuff. So please keep following us. Facebook.com/Pickles Horror Show. That's where you can follow us on Facebook. Check out our TikTok page at Horror Show Official. You get little bite-sized pieces of what we do on that page. And just in general on social media, you can keep up with what we're doing. We have our podcast going. We have multiple film projects on the horizon, scripts we're working on, things we're trying to get funded, a film that Michael Pickle directed himself, pay up that we're trying to get distribution for. So podcasting is not all we do. If you ever wonder why we don't release a podcast as consistently as we used to, we are very busy. This is just one of the many facets of our brand.
Yeah, and this is going to be probably our biggest, most busy year.
So Merry Christmas to everybody. For those who don't celebrate Christmas, try to enjoy the holidays the best you can. If you're Jewish, happy Hanukkah. Enjoy your season as well. Happy holidays. I know people think that's controversial. It's not. It's just a way to say Merry Christmas, happy Hanukkah, and a happy New Year. We'll see you next year. Enjoy the rest of the year, folks. Stay safe and enjoy your loved ones. Don't be so cynical this year. That's all I'm going to say.
Everybody be happy and healthy and safe, and spend some time with your family and make a little more effort to spread love this year.
Yeah. Or Krampus will come get you.
Yep.
Until next year, folks, happy horror.